So which of these plugins should you use to make your kick drums? Today that's the question that we're going to be answering, and we're going to be doing that by looking at 3 very popular new plugins, which is Kick3, Kick Ninja, and Audija's Kickdrum. Now for those that follow the channel, they will know that I have been using Kickdrum for a longer time. I've actually made a couple of videos on it, and I've been using it as my main kick synthesizer for about half a year now. So this comparison is going to be a little bit biased because of that, but I'm trying to be as objective as possible as I go through all of the features of the 3 different plugins. So let's just open up all 3 of them so that we can have a quick look at each of the interfaces. I did make some of them bigger, so this is Kick3 at a bigger size. We have Kick Ninja over here, which currently opens up full screen for me. I really like when a plugin is able to do that, especially with a kick drum plugin, where you have to be so precise with fine-tuning all of the points on the graph here. It's nice that you can have the interface nice and big in order to do that. And then finally, we have Audija Kickdrum over here, which you can also set to basically full screen. You can make it even bigger to get it to full screen, of course. And you can see that all 3 of the plugins are going to have their own philosophy on how to best use the interface. But you'll notice that when it comes to Kick3, this is actually the maximum size that you can make it. So when it comes to Kick3, what I would say is that you're less likely to be able to really home in on the details of the points that you see here, just because the interface is so much smaller. But of course, you can always zoom in with the mouse wheel if you want to do horizontal changes. Just keep in mind that vertical changes you aren't as precise as maybe in other plugins. Now just going through it, you have options down below over here and up top over here. As you can see here, you can switch between pitch and amplitude. You have presets here. You have some options for the editing like snap. And then you can toggle all of the views over here. One of the cool features that they've added is a linear view, which means that what you're actually seeing actually lines up with the waveform. Before it used to be the case that you would have a logarithmic view. This is nicer because it gives you more space for the earlier parts, especially with the pitch. As you can imagine, if you only have the linear option, this is going to be very cramped for all of the transients. And then down below over here, you have more global options, like for example, how much the pitch is going to be applied. So you can set an overall amount of envelope that is going to be applied here, or like maximum limit for the highest point over here. You have a separate tuning that is independent of the tuning that you see in these cards here. So you can tune your kick up and down with just one simple knob. You have panning to the left and the right. And then you also have the total length, which you can set here. Now, as most people probably know, this is the successor to the massively popular Kick 2. And it's also going to include the same philosophy of being able to create a sub as well as clicks. As you can see, there's a click sample already loaded, and I can add 3 more layers to it. So if I want to load some extra clicks, I can do that. In the previous plugins, you weren't able to combine subs, but now you can. You can add another sub layer if you want to. I don't know why you would do that and what you would get out of that, but you could do it if you want to. After that, on the right here, we have some more settings over here. We have some more macros and some more playback settings as well. We also have the effects over here. So this switches to the effects tab. We have another EQ here. We have sample import for if you want to analyze a sample and recreate it, which is something that we're going to test with all 3 of these plugins. And then finally, we have this audio trigger over here. This is also a very nice idea. What this essentially allows you to do is it allows you to send a sidechain signal to this plugin, and it will use that audio as a trigger for the kick drums that this plugin is generating. So if you already have a kick track in your project and you don't want to remake all of the kick patterns, you can just route your audio to it and it will play anytime a kick drum plays. Now, Kick Ninja is going to be very, very similar. As you can see, we have 1 oscillator and 3 samplers over here. These are for the clicks. And this 1 oscillator is going to act like the sub. You can see you have some more playback options down here. We have the effects over here in a small little panel. You can see 2 distortions, a filter in between them, and there's a compression after it. And then you can see more global playback settings up top here. And again, the whole idea is basically in editing this curve. So you have the pitch curve over here. You have the amplitude curve over here. You also have different curves here. So this is, for example, for a waveform blend. So what I can do is can try out different waveforms. And I can alternate between which ones I want. So you can see we have a triangle there for a little while. And if I want to go back to a sine wave, I do something like this. Same is true for the distortion over here. So for any part in the waveform, I can say, okay, I want you to distort just this part over here. Get a little bit of a square over there. And I will just make it go back here. And the same is going to be true for these 4 harmonics that you see. So anytime we want to introduce the 3rd harmonic, we can do so again with the automation. Just automate up, we can see the 3rd harmonic start to appear there. And then we'll just move down again over here. Can make it a bit louder, so that's a little bit clearer where it's happening. Mainly over here, it's nice to see because over here with the triangle, that harmonic is already present. So in terms of features, it is technically a little bit less complex than Kick 3. So for example, in Kick 3, we had this nice EQ over here. which is just a 4-band parametric EQ. I don't know if that same EQ is going to be available inside of Kick Ninja. If it is very well hidden. And given that I like the interface of Kick Ninja a lot more than the interface of Kick 3, I think the fact that I could not find an EQ means that it doesn't have one. Because at the end of the day, that's really where it's all about with these kick drum creation plugins. It is just about the interface, because at the end of the day, the effect that they're all doing is going to be exactly the same. They're just going to be generating a sine wave with a certain pitch and a certain amplitude and layering some samples on top of that. At least that is going to be true for a vast majority of people and use cases. I don't think many people that are into creating distorted kick drums are going to dial in that distortion in this stage of the kick creation. I feel like they're going to have, unique plugins for that and unique processes for that. So even for the people that do want something a little bit more complex than just a sine wave, they're probably not going to be doing that over here. Or at least they're probably not going to dial in all of the distortions exactly as they want them inside of this plugin itself. So really what it needs to do well, this plugin, is just the pitch and the amplitude part. Now, as I said, I think this interface is a little bit cleaner than the one from Kick 3. One of the things that I really like is how they implemented the skew. What we saw before in Kick 3 is that we had either a logarithmic or linear workflow. But what we can do over here is we can turn on the skew here. And as you can see, we can just morph between how wide we want the transient to be, basically. So this is going to be linear scale, meaning that the points that you see over here actually line up with where they would line up in the kick drum itself, with the waveform that you see in the back here. That is also going to be true for the amplitude, or at least almost. As you can see, at a factor of 0, there is still a little bit of a difference. It would be nice if it would just be the same point at that point. That way you wouldn't even need to have the skew option. You would just have an individual slider that you could set in order to become more and more linear. So that again, you have more space at the start where you can dial in the details that you need to dial in. Now that brings us onto Audija, which is my daily driver, as I said. This is the plugin that I like to use in order to make my kick drums. And really the reason why I like this plugin over any other kick drum plugin is just the workflow, the speed at which you can create a kick drum. Now, one of the reasons for that, in my opinion, is because everything is displayed linearly. So again, what you're going to see over here in the graphs is going to line up exactly with the curve, as you can see over here. In this case, there's an EQ point over here. So there's one point where it's not lining up. As you can see now, everything is lining up with the amplitude. And you can already see another feature which I really like, and that's that the EQ is not applying any phase shift. So I can boost an area or I can cut an area without changing the phase of that area. And as you can imagine, as a psytrance producer, I really like that, because that means that I can phase line something, which you can do over here. And then I can still EQ my kick drum without breaking the phase alignment that I previously set up. Now, as a psytrance producer, all 3 of these modules is enough for me to make my kick drums. All I need is pitch, amplitude envelope, and a little bit of EQing. And really, to be honest, I know at this point how to make a kick drum to such an extent that I wouldn't even need to EQ. Because at the end of the day, because there's no phase changes, what an EQ ends up being is just a different way to set up the volume for any point in time. You can just imagine that throughout time, it goes into the lower and lower frequencies, because that is exactly what it's doing over here. But if you want to have something a little bit more complex, you can of course also do that by just adding new modules. So I can add another oscillator to it. I can add an EQ to that. I can move this into a bracket together, so these two become grouped. So this EQ is only going to apply to this oscillator, and all of this stuff is only going to apply over here. Of course, this oscillator also is going to need an envelope, so let's make that. And let's just, I don't know, set it up like this maybe. So that it's just adding a little bit towards the end there, so that we can see it clearly. Of course, we can saturate all of this together. We could also clip all of this together. So let me scroll to the end here. Yes, you can extend this infinitely far as you want. So you can see we have a clipper over here. We have some saturation over here. You can add a sample to this, and then you can load a sample from there. So really, when it comes to these plugins, any one of the 3 that you choose are going to be okay for making kick drums. They're going to allow you to make whatever kick drum that you want. When it comes to the main comparison, as I said, it is going to be all about interface and workflow and what you would like to do, what you would like to make in terms of kick drum and how you would like to make them. One final thing that I do want to test though, which you can kind of objectively test, is their kick drum analysis tool. So all 3 of these plugins come with an interesting feature, and that is the recreation of existing kick files. So I'm just quickly going to grab a kick over here. This is a kick drum that I made for my masterclass, which actually is currently on sale on my Gumroad and my Payhead page. So if you're interested in learning more about psytrance production, make sure that you check that out. As from now up until the end of the year, there's going to be 30% off. But anyway, let's take this kick drum that we have from this masterclass here and let's open up Kick 3 first. I haven't experimented with this yet, but I'm just going to make the plugin a little bit smaller. I probably am going to need a crop clip here, and I'm assuming that you can just drag it in here. There we have it. What it has done is it has created a sub and a click for my kick drum. So this is just the sub. If we just solo this. And then it has added the click on top. What I want to do now is I want to do the same thing with Kick Ninja over here. So I'm going to open up Kick Ninja. And I'll need to make it smaller so that I can grab it from the interface. And I should be able to just drag it in here. AI import. There we go. It again has created both a oscillator and a click. So the click is going to be the high frequencies and this is going to be the lower frequencies. This is significantly louder though. Finally, I'm going to import it inside of Kickdrum. I would again need to see exactly how to do that. I don't think you can just drag and drop it on there. Here we are. Once we have it loaded as a sample like this, what we can do is we can just go over here and click. And now it will create a version of it that is just the kick drum. Again, this is going to be an oscillator for the low frequencies. As you can see over here, it has an EQ point somewhere where it decided that it can no longer generate the higher frequencies accurately. And then it has its envelope, and then the rest is just going to be a sample that is going to be filtered like this. So I've quickly just normalized all three of these kick drums over here. And what I'm going to try to do is see if they null against the original kick drum that we analyzed. I am doubtful that any of these will actually null, but if they do, then we'll see if one is significantly better in creating kick drums than the other ones. Let's see what that peaks at. Can do that by going here. Minus 7.84 on kick 3. Here it seems to be more focused towards the high frequencies. And therefore the transient is just going to peak at almost 0. This seems to be a very close match. Yeah, minus 10.4. Okay, so that seems to suggest that creating this kick drum over here is going to be easiest inside of Audija, or at least its automatic kick drum creation gets it the closest. Of course, this was just one kick drum that we tested, and we could do many more. There's going to be many variables that is going to allow one plugin to maybe be better in one kick drum versus another plugin being better when creating a different kick drum. And really, again, I don't really want to talk about this too much because I, again, just think that when choosing between all three of these, it is going to be in the interface. Do you like this way of working more with the modules up top and the main settings that you want to adjust over here and a lot of space for your curves to edit? Or maybe do you like it more that the curve takes up the whole vertical area of the interface so that you can really zoom into it? I believe holding Control, yes, you can really zoom into it and you can drag it around so that you can edit like this. Or maybe you're the kind of person that doesn't really care about the nitty-gritty details of their kick drum. And maybe because you're making a different genre than I do, you care more about the effects that you put on your kick drum, then Kick 3 is definitely the way to go because you have all of these effects over here. So really, the conclusion for this should be that you should find your own workflow and you should probably test all three of them, which is honestly not so different from what I usually say at the end of plugin videos. And that is that at the end of the day, a plugin is only worth it if it fits within your workflow. And with a kick drum synthesizer, it's going to be just about that. How quickly do you create the kick drum that you need for your track? Because at the end of the day, it's not really something that we tend to be creative with. A kick drum just needs to work, it needs to make you dance, it needs to sit in the mix well. And the creativity tends to be more in the melodies, more in the sound design, more in just other elements. And of course, the way that you arrange those elements as well. So for me personally, Audija is the plugin that gets me the quickest from, okay, starting up a project and I need to create a kick drum to having a finalized kick drum. So that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope that it helps you in finding your next kick drum plugin. If it does help you, make sure that you leave a like down below and that you're subscribed to the channel as well. Also, if you haven't checked out the sale yet that I'm running on both my Gumroad pages and my PayHip page, make sure that you check that out in the links in the description. Bye bye.